what kind of a mental health professional are you?
So I'm trained to be a psychologist.
Oh, you're training? Okay, awesome.
So
And
I'm trying to figure out my game plans that when I graduate, I am set up for my to launch my coaching program. I've also been considering launching a coaching program before I graduate because I have a lot of skills
uh-huh.
in the mental health counseling arena from my training. I'm not certified or licensed yet, but I was thinking of launching something possibly beforehand. I'm not sure.
And are you doing your supervised hours right now?
Yes.
Oh, very cool, very cool. And you have a family or?
Yeah, I have a wife and a 10 month, 11-month-old
Oh,
son.
wow. Congrats.
I'm training in an inpatient and outpatient facility doing group work, intensive like eating disorder work. Um, really cool stuff.
Oh, very cool.
Mhm.
Intensive eating disorder work with the actual people who are suffering from eating disorders?
Yes, so there are people suffering from eating disorders. There's also a lot of addiction,
Mhm.
rehab and recovery. There's such a wide variety of different present case presentations in this space.
And are you currently working with like is mostly teenagers who are suffering from eating disorders?
Mostly college students. It's not all
College students.
users, but it's primarily a college student, like late teens to 30s population.
Interesting. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Well, why don't you tell me your concept for a coaching program?
Sure. So one of the things that I'm really passionate about is I want to help people to create the how do I say this? So one of the things that I struggled with as a student therapist last year was talking to my clients who had, so much pain and suffering, and they were really struggling. We were working through it, and we were processing their struggles, but they had so many different areas of their lives that they needed improvement. And as a therapist, it wasn't really my role to jump in and to help them with all those different areas of their lives. So I thought it would be a really cool idea for a coaching program to kind of offer therapy in addition to coaching, in the realm of helping people to, consult with their finances, their grooming, their scheduling, their organization and time management. Particularly, my niche, I think, is going to be spirituality as well, because I am trained to be a rabbi. So, how does spirituality play in your life and meaning and purpose in that realm? And try to really help people to create a holistic, nutrition as well. I'm hoping to do a nutritional therapy training by the time I'm graduated as well. So really to try to support people with the gamut of their different
Sure.
parts of their lives, so that it's not just working through their emotional experience of things, but also how are we making concrete changes maybe over a shorter period of time. So instead of like 2 years of intensive therapy work, it's like 6 months of intensive therapy work along with intensive coaching in a variety of different areas.
Okay. So you're going to be doing therapy and coaching for the same person at the same time?
That's what I was thinking.
I think you have to look at that legally. It could be a dual relationship.
Hmm.
I'm not an expert on that particular piece, but you have to look at that pretty closely because, as I understand it, there can be some problems that come up with that if you are offering therapy and coaching to the same person at the same time. So I'm not an expert in that, but just do your homework there. Now,
Hmm.
here's the one thing that if you're doing therapy and coaching together with a person, let's say that it's no problem and it's legal, it does restrict you still to your state. Because if you're licensed in one state and you're doing something that's therapeutic, you cannot go outside of that state with it unless I think because you're training to be a psychologist, you're in PsyPact, and that might bring you up to 29 states. So make sure that's covered. It's I've never actually had somebody launch a program that includes both therapy and coaching. I've had people who have different routes. And there was one person in PsyPact who did that, where they could take the clinical route and work with her one to one, or they could go the coaching route and work in her group program. You
So
see?
that's something that I'm open to as a possibility as well. I kind
Uh-huh.
of thinking it would be a unique thing to offer therapy and coaching at the same time. So it's kind of giving people a very intensive,
Mm-hmm.
focused way to really change a lot of different parts of their lives very quickly. and to experience emotional healing as a result of seeing their life change in a variety of different ways. But I'm
Okay.
also doing a separate
Yeah.
program. I just, I kind of know what I want to do in the realm of coaching, and that's what
Uh-huh.
I share with you. That kind of holistic. We're going to go through different areas of your life, and we're going to fix it. But the question, I'm curious maybe to hear from you what your experience has been with therapists that you've worked with who have done that as a separate thing.
Yeah, so everybody I've worked with does it as a separate thing. And so I'm just going to say, call the board, ask that question because I'm not an expert on that. I mean, there is some legal opinion. There are some legal opinions on this channel, or interviews, I should say. Legal interviews are not legal opinions, with different legal experts that you can find. But just be very careful there. I want to make sure that's very well defined before you go forward to see if you even can mix together therapy and coaching.
Mm.
It might be that somebody else needs to be doing the therapy and you're providing the coaching. You see, it might have to be something like that if you're going to do that. However, if you do that, you have a separate sales problem, which is they have to go and find the therapist they want and then come back to you and buy your coaching, which is going to cost you a lot of sales. So let's talk about the actual coaching program because let me ask you this question. This is the first time we've ever spoken. What do you know what do you know about me that I do? How would you sum up what I do in a sentence?
You are brilliant at taking therapists and helping them to create coaching programs.
Perfect. Okay. See that is one sentence where you summed up what I do, right?
Mm.
So now re-explain your coaching program to me from that perspective. Like if somebody was to come and understand what it is that you do, or to try and gain some understanding of what they do, what is the understanding you would want them to have?
I help people get out of anxiety and depression by actually helping them to change their lives in the ways that they think they need to.
Okay. We certainly can't say anxiety and depression because that's DSM terms. And if it's a coaching program, we don't want to coach in the DSM. So let's say
As you can
that
see, I'm
we
new to
change it a
this.
little bit. Sorry?
I said, as you can see, I'm new to this. So
Yeah, yeah, no, this is great. This is the stuff that everybody needs to learn. Um, so if it's not anxiety and depression, what could it be? Could it be
feeling stuck,
okay? What else?
feeling overwhelmed
Okay,
by someone's life,
okay,
um, feeling disappointed in where they are currently at in their lives.
okay. So feeling stuck is like a very non-specific term, and it's the difference. And this is such a key lesson because a lot of mental health professionals start exactly where you are with their thinking, which is because somebody comes to therapy and they say, I feel stuck. But the only real commitment they've made by coming to therapy is to 1 hour for either their copay or up to a couple of $100.
Yeah.
Right? So when you're coming and selling a coaching program, what you have to do is sell something a little bit different to that. Let me explain why. High ticket coaching programs are usually $2,500 and up.
Mhm.
And so the way that you have to frame a high ticket coaching program is by solving one very specific problem for one particular kind of person that they would describe in their own words. So, for example, you mentioned a few different things. You talked about health and fitness.
Yeah.
One particular kind of coaching program could be, or one particular kind of niche could be about optimizing people's mental health and resiliency by paying particular attention to their physical condition. It would
Mhm.
be kind of a fitness program, kind of that, but that would be one area. You see, what you're doing is you're coming with here's all the problems that they have, and I'm going to solve all of them at once. And the problem is that that's so general. When somebody is looking at at you, they're saying that they have to think, well, does he solve my particular problem? He solves all of them. I see that, but I just need to solve this one particular problem that I'm in. One
Mhm.
thing that you did say earlier was you working with people with eating disorders. Let me give you an example of one thing that you could do. Now, you can't work with somebody who has an eating disorder because that is a clinical issue. right? And very often, what it is young people who couldn't afford your service themselves, and so would need somebody else to pay for that service. So then you have to sell the young person on participating, and you have to sell their parents on paying. That's actually kind of hard. But and they're also probably seeking medical treatment by this point, so they're already in one of these programs. But my question is, how much support is given to the parents?
No,
Is
no.
there, if you don't have a clinical relationship with the child, could there be a program for parents about how to actually create a healing environment for their kid with eating disorders in their home?
That's actually really cool.
Yeah. So that's an example of one particular kind of problem for one particular kind of person. It might not be your area of passion at all, but I'm just using it as a way of illustrating. You see what I mean? What were
Mhm.
the other areas you really wanted to help people with? I mean, it sounds like maybe your client might describe themselves as burned out. Is that right?
I think burned out is a great one. One of the things that I'm really uniquely passionate about is the area of religion and spirituality.
Okay.
So people who have dealt with religious trauma, people who have dealt with kind
Religious
of
trauma.
in an extremist environment or extreme environment with extreme ideologies that have caused them harm. And so people,
Would it actually be called religious trauma? Are we using the T word?
it's a lowercase t. It's not
Lowercase
a,
t.
definitely not a capital T. I think it's a subject of considerable debate right now in the spirituality and religion field of the psychology world. But I would say maybe painful religious upbringing would be a less clinical way of talking about it.
Okay. So there's a religious spiritual conflict going on within the person in which that they feel like particularly like there was something very conservative or judgmental that was put on them in a certain way, which no longer works with them in their life, and they're trying to escape that and undo that programming. Is that right?
Perhaps, or they're trying to find a way to stay within their family, their community, their belief system in a way that aligns more, that is not as harsh or a way that is more palatable for them.
So they want to keep their current community, they want to keep their relationship with their current family, but at the same time escape or at the same time resolve this conflict within themselves that they do not share that same belief system.
Yes.
How is that belief system limiting them in their lives?
I mean, for someone who religion and spirituality is important to them, the idea that, God is constantly judging you,
Okay.
is a suffocating experience.
Okay.
Also to feel like you can't, you're stuck in a particular religious environment and you can't leave. And the only way to be a part of it, they might think, is to maintain the exact same rigid perspective that they were taught and programmed with. It could lead someone to feel trapped, feel suffocated, live with anxiety. There are actual, clinical disorders that stem from these things, like religious OCD.
Mm-hmm. Religious OCD, religious anxiety. Okay. Um, what areas of this person's life are they trying to push forward that they feel like they can't push forward because of this issue? Is it that their relationship with their family is crumbling? Is it that they are unable to pick a partner? Is it that they're finding themselves that they just can't date? Is there some kind of people see the whole thing about coaching programs is people throw their issues onto the outside, and so they don't talk about necessarily the problem in themselves that you see. You go straight to the inside job, but they are stuck on trying to fix this problem that they see on the outside. And what
Mm.
I'm trying to do is take what you want to teach people and apply it to something on the outside.
Mm. So maybe the two things that come up for me are dating and parenting, or where you might find challenges.
Can you
Like,
speak to me more about parenting?
yeah, so parenting might be, how do I navigate teaching my kids about complex religious topics that I myself have dealt with challenge. I don't want the same thing to happen to my kids, but I still want to raise them in a religious upbringing, but in a more nuanced way. How do I navigate that? I want to have healthy, confident kids that have a healthy relationship with religion, that are a part of my community, but are but I'm not sure exactly how to do that because I was never taught properly. And I've been trying, and like for a person who's particularly in the thick of trying to figure out what they believe and how they believe it, and is feeling a lot of insecurity around that, now they have kids and they have to figure out how to raise them.
Is it modern Jewish parenting?
What do you mean by that?
That's what I'm trying to. I'm trying to find a term for what it is that doesn't offend or achieve the opposite result of what you're looking for. You see what I mean? We're trying to encompass this problem here, which is that okay, I'm a Jewish person. I find that the way that I was raised was particularly problematic for me, and now what I'm looking to do is raise my child in a different way, but that's still in line with some of the tenets of my religion or how I understand my religion today. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of problems would be in the house with their child? Is it judgment of others upon what they're actually teaching? Is it over controlling grandparents who are saying this is how you have to raise them?
Navigating communal expectations, navigating familial expectations for sure, navigating expectations of yourself and what you might expect from your kids.
Uh huh.
How do you what are healthy expectations to have of a child? What does
Okay.
that look like? What is a
Okay.
nuanced and balanced way to approach that?
Okay. What kind of presenting problems could be happening with the child?
Um, I think a lot of it would also just come down to relationship with the parents. Like the relationship with the parent might get challenged as a result of, the parent wanting, feeling conflict with their relationship with their child, maybe not showing up for them unconditionally, not knowing how to listen, not knowing how to support them,
Mm-hmm.
having certain expectations which might lead them to have insecurity or uh, different emotional challenges, different relational challenges, different social challenges.
Could you base a program around those challenges? Like, let's say, for instance, the child is of an age where they have some degree of autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say it's a teen and they're completely rejecting the religion.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking for a way to navigate this with your child in such a way that, social media has a considerable influence, their friends has a considerable influence, their school environment has a considerable influence. And what's happening is the child is in a conflict because they're in a home that's being raised on Jewish principles, but they are in a society which rejects them summarily for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to create and so therefore their behavior is going down let's say the kid is going down the wrong path, the teen is going down the wrong path, and you're looking for a way to bring them back on track. Was that something that you'd be interested in doing?
It's actually very interesting that you're bringing this up because this is a topic of considerable concern in the Orthodox Jewish community.
Uh-huh.
They call it going off the derech, which means like leaving the path.
Mm-hmm.
And I have spent the last decade working as a teen mentor in an organization that supports teens having a healthy and balanced religious experience. So a lot of my experience is in that realm, and it's definitely a topic of considerable concern for many parents right now in that community. In my
Okay. So what we've identified are some very specific factors which would make a successful coaching program with this. Number one, there's a market. The Jewish community is large. Number two, it's an identified problem in the Jewish community. Number three, it's something that you have personal skill set for. So these are good. But why would somebody buy it? Why would somebody invest 2.5 grand or 3 grand in a program for to help them with any problem? Number one, it's a very painful problem.
Mhm.
So what that creates urgency. It creates a requirement that it needs to be solved right now, that it has to be done right, and that you need the right help to do it. That is good ground. That is like a good foundation for somebody saying, I need to hire Tani. because he's the one doing this. He's the one with demonstrated expertise and focus on solving that particular problem.
Can I counter that for a second?
Yeah.
So I think that one of the things that people might say is there's also many people right now in the Jewish community who are trying to tackle this issue.
Uh huh.
Different rabbis, educators, communal educators, psychologists. It's definitely it's because it's a topic of considerable pain and challenge in the community. There's so many people. It's a pretty like I don't know if it's a saturated market per se, but there's a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
trying to navigate that right now. So for me to come in and say, "Hey, I'm a 20 late 20s, early 30-year-old person trying to set myself up in this community, start a practice,"
Mm-hmm.
people say, "Who are you to talk about this?" I'm
Right.
50 years old. My son, I have kids your age.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other people who are doing this who have decades of experience who are talking about it.
Uh-huh. All right. So, number one, let's turn all of these things around.
Okay.
You are closer to the age of these teens than many of the people who are working the issue. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you're closer to understanding their actual situation.
Mm.
Number two, um, some of the folks are coming from the more traditional end of the community, but that might not be what the parent is thinking is the right thing that's going to get through to their child. Is that right?
Um,
Do they need somebody with a more modern outlook?
may, maybe yes, but it could also be that there's a lot of fear around that. It could be that they feel a need to stay within their particular outlook and their perspective, but somehow also to find a way that it works with their kids.
Mm-hmm. That's the language you need to be using, you see. I think we use the fact that you're young as an asset, not a liability or a threat. It's what you have to be talking about, very well versed in, is not how do I get my kid to do X, Y, and Z, but here is the experience that your children are having. Here is the experience your teens are having. This is their daily life, and this is how to understand them. And
Mm,
if you can speak from a slightly different perspective, which is, I understand your teen, perhaps even better than you do in how they're interacting with society and the world and what's coming at them, then you create your own niche and gap for that, you see? And that's how you have to stand in that confidence, you see? That's called positioning. That's how when the market is busy and there's a lot of things happening, you have to position yourself according to your particular qualities as to why somebody would actually, and you're not trying to justify it. You have to go with me and not them. You're never doing that. But what you're doing is you're teaching from this perspective where they're like, oh, wow, this person really gets my kid. You see?
mm.
And then focus on how to teach them how to have that relationship. How does that
That's
sound? Does that increase your confidence a little bit?
Yeah, that's you're a genius. Uh,
Yeah.
this it's so interesting because you took all the things that were the challenges and somehow made them. And these are strengths that I
Yeah.
resonate very deeply with, that are very very much a part of my experience. I do understand a lot of these kids.
Exactly.
I've worked with hundreds of them over the course of the last decade.
Mm-hmm.
So this is my world.
You have a lot of credibility.
I would say so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so you talk about that experience and you talk about perhaps some of the things that the community is missing as a whole when they're thinking about the experience of the child. And
So
you don't talk about it in a critical way. You just say, this is what it is.
yeah. So can I shift for a second and ask you a
Yeah.
question? So this is an awesome idea for a program, and this is like such a beautiful way to take what I have been doing and to just market it and to really meaningfully help people because I think that I could. Let's say you're, a lot I know a lot of what you do is teach people how to navigate their social media,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if I were to go and create a social media, which
Uh-huh.
and now I want to start talking about all these things, does the whole social media have to be I'm a coach who helps parents deal with this? Or can it be I'm a therapist and a coach and a musician and I do all these different things and this is and kind of within the span of this Instagram page or social media platform, I'm marketing a particular coaching platform as a part of it, but I'm also talking about other different issues. Or does that make it too general? So
Well, it
I
took you
understand
almost a minute to actually say it.
what?
It took you almost a minute to actually say all of that. You see, so you you could try and make the overarching concept mental health, but if you think about an influencer channel of any sort on social media, people tune into that channel and pay attention to it for a particular reason. And it's either the looks and personality and general entertainment value of that person, which is why you get a lot of dancing monkeys on social media, or it's because that person is teaching you about one thing that you're very interested in.
Hmm.
You see, it's also kind of hard to build a following off of multiple things, but it's much easier for you to build a following off being the this thing guy. You see what I mean?
Hmm.
Like if a parent is feeling discouraged about their teenage child, then the chances of them coming to your social media and actually looking at some of your stuff is very high compared to if it was a lot of general information where they had to sift through it and find something relevant to their current mental state or what's top of mind for them.
Hmm. So maybe a way to sum up would be to say, I care about spiritual health. And then as a part of it, I might be able to discuss the roles that different things play into spiritual health, like food and nutrition and because mental health is a part of spiritual health. Spiritual health,
Mm-hmm.
they're connected, but the focus all has to be on one. Like, how does food play into my ability to have spiritual health and to connect with my kids in a meaningful way spiritually? Like, it all has
Exactly. That
to
could be a part of overall a channel or a coaching program that is helping people who are having a painful, immediate problem with their child that they need to fix right now. And
okay,
food could be a component of it.
awesome. So then, what?
Or you create something completely different, which is just for people who have a mental health diagnosis about nutrition. Because then you become the nutrition for mental health guy. And that's a completely different platform, has nothing to do with parenting. It's a little bit, I don't think you'll be able to get as much money for a program about that as you would for a program about parenting a teen that the parent is actively seeing their child going off the rails, because the intensity of the pain and the option of saying, yeah, I could take this or leave it. There's no option but to take it if you're a parent. Whereas with nutrition and a mental health diagnosis, there is kind of a take it or leave it there.
Yeah, it's
See?
also not my passion as much. The spirituality piece is much more my passion, and
Uh-huh.
I feel like everything you're saying in that realm aligns.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say this is my thing. What are the next steps to developing that? I don't know if you're willing to talk about that, but I'm
So
curious. Like,
spirituality, um, and this is about spiritual health.
yeah, spiritual health, spiritual parenting, healthy spiritual parenting.
Healthy spiritual parenting. Okay. So this is a new one that you can slice a slightly different way. Which is the parent who feels like they're losing their child. And what you're calling it is something like spiritually fit parent, becoming a spiritually fit parent, or spiritually fit parenting. It's still solving the problem, perhaps, of what was the word that you used for the child who's leaving the faith?
Off the derech.
Okay. It could be solving this problem. I'm not going to try and pronounce it. But what you're basically doing is saying that without the key to solving the problem is actually spiritually fit parenting. If that becomes the other way of doing it, because you're just changing the lens there a little bit. What
Oh,
you're doing is you're saying, um, if you have to become a more spiritually fit parent to handle this problem.
hmm.
Because guess what? Discipline and forcing the issue won't. There's too much outside influence on your child. This is how you have to handle the problem, and you're playing a long game with your child.
Yeah.
You see, and then you could take it that way if you wanted to.
Hmm. Yeah.
You
So,
see, so it's all about trying to always orient around this painful, immediate problem that needs to be solved right now, and then bringing your medicine in line with how to solve that problem. The key thing that mental health professionals almost always do, because you have a completely different understanding of the value of what you provide to what people have, is to try and sort of say, I want to sell this medicine and tell people why this medicine is good. But if you actually say, no, I'm going to help to solve this problem, and here's the medicine I'm going to use to solve the problem, but my marketing is going to be focused on here's how you solve this problem, because that's what people are pulling out their wallets and saying, give me that.
Hmm,
Or you see,
that's
and
really
that is the always the key difference between selling therapy versus selling an actual program. The program has to have a defined problem with a tangible end result if they do everything that you teach, that they have a pretty good chance of getting if they do everything you teach. You see?
hmm,
And so long as you can do that, you can sell a coaching program, you can fit it into one. It's just the key thing that everybody goes through.
hmm. I love that. I
You
love
see?
that. So what is the like so now that you have now we have this idea
Uh-huh.
and it seems like it's really hard hitting, it's relatable, it's needed, it's necessary. How does one go from I have basically no social media, you know, and no plan or understanding of what to do to say, okay, like what are my steps to go from zero to execution?
Okay. So you have to define the offer much more specifically. And then you have to build at the highest level. What you're going to then do is build just enough of your program to get it out into the market. So you're going to have a lesson plan for the whole thing,
Hmm.
but you're only going to build the first couple of weeks worth of content. And then you're going to go out and start making offers. So let's say that in your immediate community are some parents whose children are falling into this category. You're going to probably go to them one by one and say, look, I'm developing a program. I'm launching this program, and this is exactly what we're going to do. And give them a special deal, like a beta price for it, and have them work through with you and have them basically pay you to build the program. As you're doing that and as you're taking through and developing that content, you've received a little money and you're getting a little feedback on the program, you're going to start developing a way of bringing people consistently who will pay you full price.
Hmm.
And so one way that we do is we do it with a Facebook group.
Hmm.
That's one way that we do it. And so we run an ad, which is basically for parents in the Jewish community. Let me ask you this: are there any kind of religious restrictions on why these parents wouldn't be on social media?
Some certain people in the community would not be on social media at all.
Is that a
So,
large percentage?
um, it's probably a large percentage of my particular target audience of people who would be struggling with the. I think it's actually would probably be equal across demographics, but it's definitely a substantial portion. Yeah,
What about YouTube, places like that? Are they on that?
it depends. There's
Or no
the
smartphone
community,
at all?
community is so stratified. There's like it's definitely it's a range. Some people do YouTube but not Instagram. Some people will only do WhatsApp. A lot of the Jewish community stuff is over WhatsApp. That's a really big way of where people communicate and form together different groups.
I've heard this before. It is possible. It is possible to drive leads from YouTube into WhatsApp.
Hmm.
You see, you could put content out on YouTube, which is advice-based content,
Hmm.
and then have them come closer in or subscribe to a channel on WhatsApp where you're then making offers and getting people into private conversations.
Hmm.
See? You have to be sensitive to that. That's a bit unique because usually we've done things with Facebook groups and things like this where it's been very successful. We've had one of my clients out there for parents of teens of any and all religions. She now has over 133,000 social media platform followers across a whole bunch of platforms in just a year by
Wow.
putting out advice. But if you're going to be specific to the Jewish community, what you want to do is probably create a channel on YouTube that's giving specific advice for that, and then have a way of bringing people from that channel into your private community, which sounds like it would need to run on WhatsApp.
Hmm. Interesting.
You
Okay.
see, and so what you might want to do is YouTube, and then there's more sort of private or more in-depth content, which is put out on WhatsApp, but there has to be a call to action for people, which then brings them onto a call with you. And so it's like a three-step process. There's content for everybody and anybody. And then there's private community content. So you entice them off the YouTube platform into your private community. And then from there, they become leads for your coaching program. And that's what we'd have to develop.
Hmm.
You see?
Interesting. Okay. And then, so what is the coaching program? The coaching program, what does that look like? Is it like I'm doing one-on-one coaching with people? Because you were talking about building a lesson plan.
Usually, coaching programs have three different elements because what you want to create is something very efficient, but also something that gives people daily support. Because if you're a parent of a teen, going to therapy once a week, well, actually, first thing they try to do is send their child to therapy, not themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, your whole case is like, what about the other 6 days and 23 hours that they're with you, right? Or under your control? Or the child is just refusing therapy. But so that's what the reason to offer a parenting program. But the reason to structure a community this way is for daily support. So let's say that you have a online element, which is your curriculum for how, lessons on how to properly bond with their child in a spiritually fit way that helps you to change their behavior without it becoming like an oppositional situation where it's just they see you as a different generation and you see them as a generation that's out of control.
Hmm.
How do you actually bridge that gap? So that would be the mindset shifts and the style shifts you have to give to people. The next part would be some kind of support community. That could be on WhatsApp, or it could be inside of the same place where you host a curriculum. But there are ways to do that online without using social media. And then the third part is coaching calls. I suggest 2 per week. Now, when you have this, parents have 24/7 access to a curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
They have daily access in this online community in written form where you respond within a business day. That takes you, with a small community, 30 to 45 minutes a day maximum to maintain. Mm-hmm. Once you're up into multi-six figures, it'll take you a couple of hours. And then on top of that, they have 2 calls a week. Now, this is group calls where all the parents come together. They're confidential. What happens in the group stays in the group, but everybody's learning from the experience of everybody else. Mm. And they have this kind of message board where they're able to get you and potentially collaboration from other parents on things that are working and how to apply the principles you teach on a daily basis. All of a sudden, what you have is you've created a daily environment where they can have a faster turnaround in their family than they could with their child just going to therapy.
I love that. And how does that this 2 calls a week with the group call, like I'm feeling a lot of I feel like this would be so needed, and just to feel like you're a part of a community I'm really good at that, of creating that community atmosphere, and I'd be excited to do that. But how does that differ from group therapy? Like, you're not doing group therapy with people?
No.
What is group? So what does that look like?
It's mostly Q&A because everybody is going through your curriculum. And so they're either asking to help you apply your curriculum to some of the specifics that they have. They're talking about the challenges that they're having, and you are reinforcing what you teach in the curriculum, and everybody is hearing that. Or sometimes they're talking about a win. They're talking about things that are going well, you see? And so it's not like specifically like group therapy. Most of all, you're not diagnosing or treating the parents with anything.
Yeah.
You're teaching them stuff in a psychoeducational, non-clinical way.
Yes.
And so that's why it's a coaching program that you can do with Jewish parents all over the world. See?
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking that if people were going to be sharing of themselves in a lot of group therapy, even if you take out the diagnosis and actual treatment part, much of group therapy actually is psychoeducation and group processing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what my question was. If is group processing a part of this, like creating that group cohesion and actually having people share of what they're experiencing and talking about that, or is that? It seems like what you're saying is that would happen kind of as a byproduct. When someone's asking their question, they're asking their question because they're experiencing something, and there will be a sharing component within that.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
You see?
Wow. Wow. Wow.
That's how it can work. So long as you're not diagnosing anybody or giving no, doing things in clinical terms and it's an educational program, then it's not a clinical service unless you define it as one from the outset.
Hmm.
You see?
Robin, I am so grateful.
No
This
worries.
is so awesome. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Well, what to do
Wow.
is go out and get your first few clients into the program, do your beta, come back. I'll help you develop something that takes it out into the mainstream.
Okay, I think I'm gonna need some time to really think about the
Yeah.
curriculum because this is a very nuanced place, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure I'm ready to fully go out into that. I think it might take a few months of research,
Sure.
R&D.
Do it.
Uh, this is amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Wow.
Awesome. No
Uh,
worries.
really, thank you. Okay.
Very
We'll be
good.
in touch.
All right, buddy. Let me know how things go, okay?
Will do. Take care, Robin. Thank
All
you.
right. Nice to meet you. Bye for
Nice.
now.
Take care. Bye.